Secretary Gates, Admiral Mullen, thank you for appearing today. Afghanistan is not America's challenge alone. It's the world's problem. And right now, our ratio of U.S. troops to NATO troops is 2-to-1. After this surge, it will be 3-to-1, assuming no other NATO input. The President last night was not exactly clear in the nature of the commitments that are going to be forthcoming. Many of the world's powers are content to sit while America sacrifices on their behalf. You have touched on this today, but I think the question deserves further unpacking. I believe you, Mr. Secretary, mentioned Japan is going to contribute $5 billion. There is a move toward meeting with other NATO allies to harden those commitments. But we're leading with our chin right now, and the American people need to know this is not a disproportionate burden that we are undertaking. Can you comment on that, and I'll pivot to some other questions.
Well, Congressman, I think it's important to recognize that until relatively recently, the ratio between American and non-American NATO ISAF troops was very close. Because as Admiral Mullen was saying in response to, I think, Congressman Pence's question, we were at a level of 30,000 for a very long time. And the NATO troops, Bob, I think were about that or a little bit more altogether. Yeah. And so now before this latest decision by the President, we were at 68, they were about at 42, something like that. So it's been certainly a comparable commitment given the relative size of our respective force levels. And I think if, as Admiral Mullen said, we get the kind of response we have reason to believe we will, yes, we will have additional support from our NATO ISAF allies. We will still be, at the end of our troop commitments, about 2-to-1, but there will also be a collective presence that is very significant, since it was the United States that was attacked, and all these other countries under Article 5 of NATO, others like Australia coming in, have really seen this fight, which was picked with us, as their fight as well.
Congressman, I'd just like to make one other point. Since 1941, the United States has borne a disproportionate responsibility for peace and security around the world. This is not a new development, and it has gone with our assumption of world responsibility along with our world power.
Thank you. Let me pivot to another question. What is the definition of success? And given this current plan, what is the probability of success?
I believe that success in Afghanistan looks a lot like, from a security standpoint, looks a lot like success in Iraq. And that is the gradual transfer of responsibility for security to the indigenous forces and the local government, and with the United States being able to pull back into first a tactical and then strategic overwatch, and then withdraw our troops to the point where we have a minimal presence. I think we ought to think about, if Afghans want us, a prolonged partnership well into the future of training and equipping, but fundamentally it is the transfer of this responsibility to an Afghan security force that is able to sustain that security and protect their own borders.
And the probability of that outcome?
I think if we did not believe that this outcome had a strong probability, we would not have supported it.
Let's go back to the earlier point about international commitments. Now, you mentioned a London conference. You mentioned that you're clearly trying to be nimble enough to allow other countries to manage their own internal political dynamics as they make these commitments. But how hard and real is the momentum toward burden sharing with us?
I think it's very real. Before coming into the hearing, I spoke with Secretary General Rasmussen, the Secretary General of NATO. He has been working very hard to help shape the commitments that NATO members will be making. I know everyone at this table has
other world powers as well.
And other world powers as well. And it's not only the commitment of troops, which are very important, but also the commitment of resources, and there will be a number of announcements over the next days and weeks that we will be sure that this committee has notice of.
Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Carnahan.